I know that I said you can't get lost on a peninsula, but I gotta say, I feel kind of lost. I think I officially messed up. We wouldn't really want to fall in, would we? When this was active, it would have been absolutely off limits. All right, this one's creepier than most. Over a century of military buildup has resulted in bunkers, tunnels, and ruins. My understanding is that this wreck comes from a 1950s Soviet-era built ship. So it's got a less glamorous history than that of what lies just a little bit further offshore. Welcome to Władysławowo port. In other words, the starting point of Poland's beautiful Hel Peninsula. Now, for a long time, I've wanted to show you guys some of the most treasured beach destinations in Poland, and this peninsula kept coming to mind. It's one of my favorite places on earth. Problem being, it has a seaside and a bayside with over 80 combined kilometers of beachfront. So I did the logical thing. Set out here to walk all 80 kilometers with you, of course, and together we will discover the magic and I imagine the challenges of Hel. Welcome to Kult America. Now, what makes this peninsula so unique is that its entrance is a very, very narrow landmass. In fact, when you ride the train here, and I highly recommend that if you come to Hel, that's how you experience the destination, there are moments when you can see water on both sides, and it's something just magical. A lot goes on in this peninsula, and it's got a very heavy and weathered history. But we will start our journey on the seaside, which is beyond this port here. The Baltic Sea, I imagine, is very calm today, but in the winter it can be ravaging and quite a frightening body of water. It seems that we're getting closer to entrance number 1, which is where we want to be. And I think it's a good moment to lay out some of the ground rules that I set for myself. So I aspire to stay on the beach as much as possible, but because there are many, well, not many, but there are some industrial facilities here, as well as many military facilities that do not permit access, such as the president's official seaside palace, so we won't be able to go there. And in those moments, particularly on the bay side, I'm going to make my best effort to stay as close to the water as possible, as close to the beach as possible, but I will have to make concessions, obviously. It's an optimistic moment. I have found the entrance. At the same time, it's an overbearing moment because I know that in however long it takes me to do this 80 kilometers of beach, which will probably be hard, I'm gonna end up right back there, hopefully with a tale to tell. All right. This is going to be our first glimpse of the Baltic Sea. Well, I don't think we could have asked for a more glorious day, that's for sure. So here you've got another perspective on the port of Władysławowo, and I've been told that the existence of that port stopped the natural migration of sand, which would go the entire distance of the Hel Peninsula, ending up on what is called Cypel, or the kind of pinnacle point of the peninsula island. And because this sand is stopped by unnatural barriers, Cypel is slowly eroding, decaying. In fact, there are people who believe this whole peninsula won't exist in a mere matter of decades. And I'm not sure here, so let me know in the comments below. but these wooden pillars, if I had to guess, I'd go out on a limb and say that they're to dissuade natural erosion, because this is one of the thinner points of the peninsula, and throughout the ages it's disappeared. You can see a helicopter flying off in the distance here, and this is a pretty busy area recently. You can see fighter jets training, or I don't know, chasing away Russian aircraft that try to violate their airspace. I'm not really sure, but typically the presence of a helicopter is for medical evacuation. All right, there we go. Entrance number 3. As far as I know, when you get to Hel, it's like 67. So 3 down, 60 something more to go. Speaking of the way the sand works, I found that walking on wet sand is obviously easier, but to do so, sometimes you have to come out on these almost mini peninsulas. Of course, at the risk of a wave cresting over and getting your shoes, but it's very beautiful. My progress could be better. I'm not gonna lie. It's already been like a half hour, and the port is still quite close. And the pillars still go on forever. All right then, seems like we've come to a halfway point, I'm guessing, with these pillars, because they go on into infinity that way, and they go on into infinity the other way. So at least we have some symmetry going on. The port is far off in the distance, I can no longer see it. It feels like a good moment to kind of walk out on this jetty to get a little more up close and personal with the sea. But obviously with the expectation that I'm not going to fall down into the water, because 80 kilometers with wet boots is bad news. So as far as I can tell, the tops of these are soft and slippery. We wouldn't really want to fall in, would we? Because it already looks deep. I've got a bag full of gear. So hopefully my equilibrium isn't going to disappoint me. Oh wow, there are fish down there. Whoa. Fish, okay, I've got to focus on the task at hand here, because I almost fell in when I wanted to show you guys those fish. It's absolutely beautiful, I'll give it that. But I don't really want to end up in one of those fail army videos. And so for that reason, I'm going to hustle along back to the safety of the sand and the beach to continue my journey. Probably the third dog that tried to attack me. I clearly underestimated how long these pillars go on for, but we are making progress slowly. The crest of that bluff behind me is Władysławowo, where we started, and I think our elevation has shifted a little bit, because now I have a perspective on the beach in front of us, going towards Hel and then Kuźnica, and then eventually Jastarnia, Jurata, and Hel. And as you can see, the pillar section of this that I thought was much shorter goes on much further than I had anticipated. The nature is also changing a little bit. The dunes are more gradual, more elegant, and I'm also excited to see that up here in front of us is our first kite surfer, which you only see these guys on the bay side, but I think that because the sea is calm today, maybe they'll get out there. I just hope to God that they don't have any aggressive dogs. Well, this is quite a workout. Władysławowo is slowly disappearing on the horizon. We've got a beach entrance here. Just right on the other side is the bay. I see that some children were here building a rather monumental sand castle or lake or what have you. Just around that bend is Kuźnica, where I'm going to have a little break, maybe a little tea, maybe a little dinner, before we get back on the beach and resume onwards to Jastarnia. Look at that. Just across those tracks, beyond that house, is the bay. Oh, it's bizarre to go off the beach. It's refreshing to walk on asphalt. Oh, and the smells change here. Those evergreens. So apparently this rail line was put in by the Second Polish Republic after the First World War. And it was necessary because this was a rather important access point to the Baltic for the Polish military. And so they didn't exactly have tourism in mind when they set this up, although historically there's been tourism here. City map of Kuźnica, and it's more developed than I expected, complete with its own cemetery, tourist station, church, second church, of course, fishing port, and as far as I can tell, this is the place to do windsurfing. So it's cool. And just ahead of me, I've got the first view of the bay today. I almost prefer it to the seaside. It's completely serene, calm, still. But I'm gonna have like 40 kilometers of walking on that side too, so let's not get carried away. Oh, wonderful, more dogs. So, let's give you a little perspective. These cliffs all the way down there is where we started. We covered these endless pilings, like a crazy mirror maze. And now, pilings are about to end, and we will continue well beyond that bluff to the city of Jastarnia, maybe even Jurata, if I've got the willpower. And I'm excited because we're entering the wild beach, but I expect there will be far more people now that we're close to the larger cities of the Peninsula Island. And look at that. We have reached the end of the pilings once and for all. That's a nice emotional payoff early in this segment of the walk. You know? Might not seem like a big thing, but when I was just looking at them into the vastness of the beach here, they really went on forever. And so the fact that I'm about to cross the absolute last one is a wonderful thing. You see? Now it's all behind me. Now, I don't believe this to be amber, but I'm no expert. So I will keep it for now and check it under a UV light later, because it's awfully peculiar with this bizarre encrustment. I don't think it's amber, but very interesting rock. I must admit, as we get ever closer to Jastarnia, this beach becomes more and more magnificent. It's becoming untamed. The nature around it is changing. We've got more evergreens coming into the mix. What a magical sight. All right, no doubt there is something on the beach here, and it is massive. I also see a slew of people around it, so guessing it's something important. Whoa. That one got me. The other thing that amazes me whenever I'm near a historic site such as this is the fact that we can be so close. When this was active, it would have been absolutely off limits to visitors, and with the redundancy of time, not only can we walk right up to it, but it would seem we could probably go inside if we so wished. And I do wish to. So, I don't know how the light's gonna manage, but we'll do our best. All right, this one's creepier than most. Got this terrible feeling that like an animal's gonna jump out, you know, taking shelter here. Could be bats, could be boars, of which there are many in this area. And now there's so much sand in here that I have to completely crouch over for this exploration. And I would assume that the sand has blown in here over the years. It's really something. Okay, I think that's about enough for me. I was curious where that lookout point was. Wow, that's not something that you see every day. And I don't know if it comes through on the camera, but you can see the beach just peacefully churning. Look at that. All right. So now I'm going to find my way out of here, head back to the beach, and continue our journey. Now, part of me is wondering, did the soldiers that were positioned in these bunkers ever take a moment to reflect upon the beauty that surrounded them? Or was it just go mode, you know, defending the land and sitting there in paranoia? This is pretty unique. At Jastarnia entrance number 40, there's a random pipe just sticking out towards the sea. Huh. Makes me wonder if perhaps there's more hidden under these dunes. Since we're officially in Jastarnia, a few observations. The first is that this is the Polish seaside hipster mecca. Every summer, loads of hipsters turn in, spend a week or two at a time, and enjoy the beaches. And I will confess that this is a beautiful beach. Perhaps the most beautiful if you're looking for that classic Florida-style sand, all while being on the Baltic. And with that, we leave Jastarnia in the dust. And it would seem that the beaches of Jurata are ever so slightly encrusted in sunlight. So, it's not going to rain after all, which is good news. Look how the color of the sea changes with the presence of those dark clouds. Earlier we had a deep blue, and now it's rather a deep green, complemented by bluish, purplish clouds, backlit by the sun. It's worth walking here under any conditions, really, just to observe how nature changes. Now ahead of me we have another structure, but this time it's not a bunker, it's a luxury hotel, which marks the end of the road for today's leg of the journey. And I couldn't be more relieved, quite honestly. This has been beautiful and amazing, but very challenging. And I can't believe that I'm only about 1/4 into this experience. This type of beach debris is the most likely place to find amber, with a caveat. You do the hunting at night with a UV light so that it stands out. If we did it today, it'd be much, much harder to find anything, as the coloration is all pretty similar. Here we have it. Entrance number 60. We're getting there, slowly but surely. My first impressions of Jurata are very positive. It's probably the most posh place that we've seen so far, but this sand is impossible. So I am disheveled, I am sweaty, I'm exhausted, my legs hurt, but I've learned a lot from this experience. Leg number 2, from Jurata to Cypel. In Hel, I anticipate this is going to be a little bit harder than the first section because I'm worn out, and to the best of my knowledge, the beach is soft, which we already learned makes for a much more invigorating hike. But on the other hand, I'm happy to get through the first half of this whole endeavor, and I very much look forward to seeing what's on the bay side. I think it's an area less visited. But now we move forward to enter and resume where we left off. I was also a bit surprised to find out how easy it is to burn out here. So I came prepared, as per my wife's order. Hopefully tonight it won't be as uncomfortable as I was last night. Allow me to show you guys something deceptive. That there is entrance number 62. And I believe the final one in Hel is 67. Could be mistaken, but it's something like that. And so it would have you think that, well, shit, 62. I'm practically there, right? I've barely walked for 10 minutes and be there in no time. But looks can be deceiving. There's just not many entrances in between here and Hel. Probably doesn't count for too much, but I am proud to say that I found a pretty microscopic piece of amber. Check that out. And this is despite the fact that we're in broad daylight with no UV light. It was just shining through the sand. So small, but quite beautiful. Well, once you start looking for it, it is indeed possible to find these smaller pieces. Who knows? Maybe we'll find something more significant. And as we move away from the town, it's already starting to turn into something just breathtaking. Look at that. Look how the blue contrasts with the white of the sands, and it just kind of topples off into the green of the dunes. Incredible. Now, if you look there straight ahead, you'll see the first signs of military fencing. And that is not at all unusual here. There's still a lot of fencing, a lot of space closed off. But if you turn back the hands of time, even to the 1980s, I was told that the majority of this peninsula beyond Jurata, so in the city of Hel, was not accessible to people, and that even within the city, there were fences everywhere. You needed permission to go to various sectors. So that's why it wasn't very touristic, as you could imagine. People required special permission to enter with the car. And we're going to be seeing a lot more contrast, just like those fences behind us. And we are nearing that first bend. Looks a bit like a desert, right? Especially with some of the old trees, which I presume are no longer alive on the dunes there. This is filled with the good grace of nature. And when I admire the other tourists walking on the beach here, you can see that they're filled with a calm that you don't normally find in touristic places. And I have a theory about that. Because one thing that really puts this peninsula aside from other great destinations in Poland is the fact that the tourist infrastructure here is not super corporate. I mean, there are a couple of corporations here, but it's not the type of place where you're driven towards all the bells and the whistles. And they say that the Hel Peninsula is not going to exist in the future. I wonder, because when you look at old maps, you see that at times in history, it was portrayed as a series of islands, like an island chain. And in other parts of history, it was a peninsula. The common consensus is that the people exploring here, they came to map in different periods. Some periods, it was an island chain. Other periods, it wasn't because of the shifting sand. This is really nothing more than a sandbar. This is actually right in front of me is a great illustration. So you could imagine, seaside, bayside, Hel. It legitimately looks like a desert. Like a lightly forested desert. You see you've got some trees toppled over here because the dunes erode. You've got other trees that may have very well been washed across the shore from another location. And that's where they ended up. Because during a storm, these dunes might very well be totally inundated in waves. Hard to picture today. It's got nothing but a vast, open, beautiful beach. So we're just under halfway to Hel, finishing up with the National Dune Reserve. And ahead of me, the beach looks like a boneyard. There's a bunch of scraps from trees, old trunks. I don't know why they're here, but there must be something to do with the current because there's quite a lot of them. This indeed is a change of scenery. We just walked out of the boundaries of the National Reserve, and like a light switch, there's nothing but tree trunks washed up almost as far as the eye can see. God, even the color of the sand is different here. Like the freaking graveyard of Hel or something. Graveyard for trees and plastic bottles anyways. This is such an unusual section of the beach. Even the sand is a different color here. And a lot of debris is piled up in one place. I also noticed that the sand is kind of jetting out a bit, so we can assume that this would be a very wild place to be during a storm. Because all these bottles, shoes even, they don't find their way up here magically. Oh, just. Also got some people up in the dunes here. A little bit embarrassing. I feel like an asshole recording myself. Słucham, robię projekt, że przejdzie całe półwyspa w dwóch stronach.
Okej, zajebiście.
No.
Najlepsze miejsce w Polsce.
And so it seems that this beach is still filled with surprises. This section of the beach is probably the most quiet. Been walking for about a half hour here and haven't seen another person, despite the fact that the weather is perfect. So even if it's a small space, relatively, you can always find a little piece of it for yourself. Now, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that either aliens have landed or there's some massive snake in the vicinity, because I don't see any human footprints alongside this really weird zigzag. Coming upon two significant landmarks. One is Góra Szwedów, or the Swedish Mound, which is said to have been a place where Swedes shipwrecked eons ago. Beyond that is a military tower that I don't think I can film, but this is an important moment because it means we're getting much closer to the city of Hell. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, you gotta be careful where you walk. I didn't know that quicksand was a thing. Oh my God, it really is. Whoa. As we head towards the final bend here, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about what lies beyond these dunes. You see, over a century of military buildup has resulted in bunkers, tunnels, and ruins from various governments, various countries even, all left to sit here and rot. Now, oh my God. Okay, I was almost up to my knees there. Wow. Anyways, the interesting thing is that they're preserved in the sense that people come here and visit them, but they're not necessarily maintained or kept up, renovated in any way. So it's a very unique opportunity to see and enjoy the fleeting nature of time, the scars of time, or just how the cutting edge defense technology of the day can in one moment be off limits and secure, and then in the next moment be forgotten. We've got some people straight ahead. First time in about an hour. We must be getting close. It would also seem that I have the perfect place to get the sand out of my shoes. Oh. It's the first time I sat down in a while. It's kind of nice. You guys see what I mean about there not being any entrances here? How long have we been walking? Almost 3 hours. And since Jurata, I haven't seen a single official entrance to the beach. Now, there are ways to access it, obviously, but they're a little more informal. But beyond the Swedish Mound, I think we're going to be coming upon the first Hel entrance to the Baltic, which is reassuring. Although we still got another like 7 kilometers to walk from here. So it would appear that we are finally coming upon the first entrance to the city of Hel, but we're gonna go forward all the way to the end of this peninsula where we'll find ourselves on the bay side. Ahead of us, we have some handcrafted teepees. You can see some ships off in the distance, probably waiting to enter the port of Gdynia. Beyond those ships is the end of this peninsula island. So we're really getting there. Step by step, kind of an amazing feeling. Based on the calmness of the waves, the fact that there's a swan swimming there, I'd contest that we've crossed into the bay side. You can see how the peninsula curves along here, and now we're pointing down towards the landmass of Poland. It's a unique perspective. Although we're lower than that landmass, we have quite a view as it's unobstructed. Now we're approaching Cypel, which is the very end of the road in terms of where the sea meets the bay. If you remember at the very beginning of this video, we talked about sand migration and how it does not happen here because of all those pillars we walked past. As a consequence, Cypel is said to be eroding. You can see the very end of the Hel Peninsula right there in front of us. Final footsteps for the seaside of this video. And the weather couldn't be better. Here we are. The end of the road. Half of the end of the road, because we still have to go back on the bay side. That's how it looks. That is the end of the Hel Peninsula. Behind us, we have the Grand Baltic Sea. In front of us, we have the majestic Bay of Pulsk. I feel like I've made two things clear by now. One, the seaside was fantastic, very adventurous. And two, I'm officially Poland's Forrest Gump with all this walking. With that, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to head down the bayside, staying to the beach as much as possible, and discovering whatever lies ahead. The Kashubian Mound, in commemoration of the start of Poland. It's going to be a lot of this. The road goes straight ahead. You curve off here. You can't stay near the sea very long, but I'm going to stay true to the mission and curve off. Time really took a toll here, but it's stunning in its own way. The contrast of this boat against what I assume is a communist era building. So in recent history, the inhabitants of Hel were always a combination of military families and fishing families. I'm told that they live together well and that they're open to outsiders because, well, this is a port. And hence, outsiders, no doubt, have made appearances here, probably more than in some of the other places throughout Poland. It's official. We are in the city of Hel. And I think it's a really nice place for me to take a break, maybe have some smoked fish, admire the beautiful architecture before we put our boots back on, get onto this beach, and head west. Good morning from a beautiful and sunny Hel Peninsula in the city of Hel proper. Today we set off for the bayside, in the direction of Jastarnia. I expect it to be a little more complicated than the previous walks because a lot of the area is fenced off. There are some military sites there which are off limits, but it should be interesting. So now, let's find the beach. This promenade has recently been redeveloped and looks pretty great. In the past, there were train tracks that ran all the way down to the fishing port. You can still see the train tracks embedded in the ground there, and they go on for the duration of the port. I'm curious if those will be removed as well. I'm not gonna lie, I considered cheating a little bit and not doing this part of the walk, but fair is fair. I promised you guys I'd walk the whole thing, so we're gonna do it. Just ahead of me here we have the city's dune park, and well, perhaps it's not as epic as what we saw on the Baltic side. It is still lovely. You can see over in the port is a ferry, a small ferry, that will commute tourists to Gdańsk, Sopot, and Gdynia several times a day throughout the summer months. I haven't tried that out yet, but it's probably a lovely experience. This is where we reach the end of the city beach, and to my left here is off limits, absolutely, because that's the military base. And although it doesn't seem too populated these days, it's still a place where we can't walk. Here's something unexpected. On rare occasions, whales have been known to come into the Baltic Sea. Such was the case in 1966, when this was found washed ashore. Although it would seem that we are traveling into the unknown here, or into a road less traveled, this in fact leads you to one of the most beautiful scenic places that Hel has to offer on the bayside, as well as some of the most important historic attractions, like shipwrecks, like the magic pine tree, as well as a series of swings that have been set up for all to enjoy. I told you this would be beautiful. I did not lie. Here's our first glimpse at the proper wild bayside beach. And I really don't think that most tourists would suspect that there's a garbage dump and a wastewater facility right there behind me. But let's orient ourselves a bit, shall we? So now we are looking along the length of the peninsula. This is a really cool perspective because unlike the Baltic side, where you're like on the outside of the curve, now we're on the inside. So we can see along these dunes. We've got the first landmark is a presidential palace, which we will not be visiting, obviously. After that is Jurata, and you can see the pier, the outline of the pier at least, then Jastarnia. Now, you can't see to the complete end of the peninsula, but it gives you a huge vantage point. But these beaches, as beautiful as they might be, are not safe for swimming. And that is because years of military remnants lie beneath the surface, and you could be injured, cut your foot horribly, God knows what. So it's more of a place where you come to admire and enjoy than it is a place where you swim. My understanding is that this wreck comes from a 1950s Soviet-era built ship. So it's got a less glamorous history than that of what lies just a little bit further offshore. And since the waters are low, it looks like we can venture out in that direction. Okay. I'm a little bit paranoid after the whole quicksand scenario we experienced. Although we did film the city beach, it's really here that the walk starts in its totality, as we will venture at least 15, 16 kilometers. It's beyond where that boat is for the first leg of our tour. And I've never been in this particular spot before. Now, these were left here on purpose to protect the island from waves, which I know it's kind of hard to believe, right? That you'd need to protect the island from waves on this side, but it does occur on rare occasion with the right winds that the waves get whipping up and can pose a huge danger to the city. And what many people might not realize is that one of the wrecks lying there is a sister ship to the famous Kuźnica, which is across the bay here in Gdynia. There's at least one discernible difference between here and the Caribbean. Algae. In the summertime, when the water warms up, it's quite shallow here, algae turns into a gross scum that floats up. I'm told it smells bad. It doesn't smell today, but they probably have to also do something about that issue. Otherwise, you've got a perfectly good Caribbean beach right here in Poland. If I didn't know any better, I say this is what remains of a pier. You've got white sand to the bottom of tree roots, some of which are exposed out into the open, and then all complemented by the green canopy. Peppered around them are old pieces of fallen trees that have been left to the elements. So it creates this beautiful but very eerie landscape. Jesus, this beach is like a tire yard. Tire after tire. Here's something that you certainly don't see every day. Check that out. Completely dilapidated tower, which appears to be sliding down with the sand dune. Hopefully not sliding over. Looks like you've also got years of barbed wire just under the surface here. There's just something about physical decay that makes an impression on me. And people setting this up meant for it to be monumental. And it certainly is. Maybe even more so in its new form, but for a very different reason. It shows that nothing is permanent. Even military bases, apparently. Wow. You've got old cement fence posts flowing into an eroding dune covered with both live trees and dead trees, peppered with pine cones that almost show the flow of the sand. And then to top it all off, you've got the Leaning Tower of Hell going down with it. Seems we have something of a border marker here as well. I can imagine that this part was probably under the sand at one point. And here you've got the inscription 1930. So at this point, you might be wondering, how clean are these beaches? Well, on the Baltic side, I really didn't see much litter at all. There was one piling that had a star matching the one we saw on that 1952 mosaic in the port here. There was also the one beach that had some bottles and some shoes. Other than that, there really wasn't much. On the bay side, however, there's considerably more. Up ahead of us, I see a security booth and a fence and a pier. I presume that is the presidential residence. And it would appear that at one point there was some military infrastructure up there. You've got the remains of perhaps a bunker and a very steep road. Looks like it led right down here to the beach. So I think realistically this is as far as we can go with the camera, but it's a historic place to be all the same. Many state leaders have been to the Hel Peninsula, including George W. Bush. And when he arrived, he didn't use his traditional motorcade because that would have required blocking the one road that gives access to all the cities on the peninsula, meaning that ambulances, fire trucks, and emergency vehicles would be unable to pass. Hence, world leaders typically arrive here by either boat or helicopter. We finally came upon the end of the presidential residence, and I want to get back to the beach, but everything is fenced off, and there are warning signs that the land is being monitored. So we don't want to break any rules here. And this is our first look at Jurata. So in front of me is a rather notable military structure. I believe these were used in torpedo testing. I could be mistaken, of course. And there are two of them. This serves as a type of gateway to the city. Eva and Adam, memorialized here on the beach. Hopefully their marriage is going strong. Might be a small portion of beach, but it's a beach all the same, so stick to our rules. Gotta hand it to him. Jurata is unbelievably beautiful. Here we have the first section of their bayside promenade. That's as far as we can go on the bayside in Jurata. Well, we'll try to stay close to the water, because here you've got a warning that if you walk on the dunes, you might face a penalty, such as a fine. All right, we're headed off into the unknown a little bit here, but I'm glad that we are, because I've come across a lot of pretty unusual stuff. Back there was like some billionaire's mansion. Here it would seem that there's a public park set proper in the forest, which is not something that you see every day. And beyond this fence are some very unusual cottages. They look like something out of a Harry Potter film. So Jurata is the spot if you're looking for a family vacation. Look at that, they've even got grass on the roof, and I'm not joking. We're getting close to Jastarnia now, and I've got to say, this is probably one of the top moments of the entire video. I really didn't expect that this marshy area would be so peaceful and lovely, but the clean air and the lack of garbage, it's just incredible, honestly. There's this immediate feeling of calm, of easiness, and now I understand that that's why people come here. Here we have it, Jastarnia proper. I didn't expect such a lovely ending to this leg of the trip. Here we go again in what I hope to be the very final leg of this rather large undertaking. We're here near Jastarnia port. The weather's beautiful. There's significantly more tourists walking around than the last time that I shot here. And as you may have noticed, I've got a new style, a hat. It's funny because in my adult life, I don't think I ever wore a hat. But in the last couple of walks that we took here, I discovered that I was drowning in sunlight. My wife suggested this might be a good idea. And sure enough, she was right, as she always is. I've always been curious how they load those huge boats in and out of the water. And now it seems that a great mystery has been revealed. This port's got an entirely different vibe than the one in Hel. Seems a little bit less active in a sense. I don't know, maybe more recreational. I do see there's quite a few fishing vessels here, but these guys got to go the long way around the peninsula to get out and to work. Well, it seems that we've got an antique of sorts. Little shop from another era. I get a kick out of these places. As you can see, the old corporate logos. The color is a bit faded by the sun, which I don't think takes long to happen here. More than anything, it's got that vibe of being from another time. When I first came to Poland back in 2000, on my first visit, from what I recall, a lot of locations and businesses in particular looked like that. And it's weird that in my lifetime they've already closed up and the country has changed such that, you know, look at the parking lot in front of me here. Fully modern, brand new, right? I like exploring those little differences. Bayside beaches are spectacular. Smell the flowers mixed with the sea air. It's a new thing even for the Hel Peninsula. And I can see there's plenty of people out here windsurfing, kite surfing. I expect there's going to be more and more of that as we wander today. Sand goes out into a marsh, and I really don't know how far it can get. And hopefully there's not quicksand on this side as well, because I had about enough of that. Check this out, we're headed to the dunes. Got a decision to make. I go right into the certain exhaustion of the sand. I go left into the potentially unforgiving marsh. I'm going left. I'm not feeling too assured with my decision here. No people. Which probably means I'm going to a dead end. Not to mention there's some pretty scary looking animal prints here. Although now that I look at it, they're also footprints. So maybe this does go somewhere. Even the birds are chirping in some less delightful way than they were back there. Well, we'll see. If I didn't know any better, looks like boars have been here. Look at that. This looks like hooves, right? Digging up food here. As much as I complained about dogs earlier, meeting a boar would be much worse. Those things are dangerous. So here it looks like we have some picnic area. How picturesque. Now it's time to head into the unknown here. It smells as good as you're imagining it smells right now. It's a huge mixture. It appears that this is the end of the road in terms of the trail. It seems to fizzle off and turn back into a beach. Look at that. It's like Caribbean sand. Maybe it's good that not everyone knows about this place. Something special just for us, right? So we're absolutely not going that way, because as the sign said, there's an airport. Now people do skydiving here, which if you were going to skydive anywhere, I mean, could you imagine how that perspective must be from up there? Got some luxury RV park here. Look at that. Exquisite VIP. But there is a huge bunker here on the bay side. Oh, wow. Okay, this was unexpected. Very nice. All right, we're not much off track at all because that beach right there is where I had to go around. Doesn't look promising here. Well, I think we can agree that I have found the road less traveled. I don't know how much of a road it is at this point, though. All right then. Seems I've dead-ended. Things really kind of bottleneck here. You've got the Baltic, you got train tracks, You got a road with double-decker buses, a bike path, a rose garden, and the bay. Condensed but lovely. So for all you cyclists out there, I think this might be one of the nicer areas because you're right up along the water, disconnected from the road. It's flat, so you've got a good easy flow. That is one white beach, and unlike some of the others that we've seen today, it's filled with seashells. I don't know if that's a natural occurrence or if they buy this sand and it, it just comes that way. Oh my God, it's a pack of dogs. Gotta be like 5 of them, and they're big. Check this out, I had no idea, but the ambitions to build forts here goes way back. We're talking 17th century. It would appear that this is the port, and it's humble, but there's a certain coziness to it. Wow. I just love the appearance of these boats out of the water. Look at the shape of that thing. I'm genuinely surprised that that is stable in the sea. I could assume this one's probably taking a little bit of a break, breather, needs renovation. There's a simplicity to this place that I really appreciate. And it's small. I don't know if you can hear that. That's the train. It's like right behind those houses. It's kind of deceptive in the camera, but this is a very small spot. The fishermen who never returned from the sea. Guys, remember that first day when I walked from Władysławowo port to Kuźnica? Well, this is where we finished up with that nice cup of tea. It's kind of nice, and I feel a little bit nostalgic that this is coming to an end upon being here and seeing that. I'm starting to think that they should rename this to Poland's Rose Garden, because it doesn't matter where you walk. Beyond Jastarnia, it's nothing but roses, wild roses, everywhere. Seems to be a forbidden staircase. I bet people still use that. Nice access point. Well, Kuźnica is officially behind us, and we are on to Hel Penisula, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is perhaps one of the most popular, if not the most popular destination for young people on the Hel Peninsula. It would seem that in 1945, in this place, Germans set up some pretty unusual fortifications, including a locomotive that was partially sunk into the bay. Now, the locomotive was pulled up after the war and effectively turned into scrap. It was useless. But this illustration is pretty helpful. Check it out. This is that sandbar I was telling you guys about, connecting to the Cypel, which is over here. So from approximately Kuźnica, somewhere probably very close to where I'm standing, beyond Kuźnica actually, it's been said that people have passed by foot all the way over there. We've teleported to the other side here. I've got to admit, this sandbar in Jurata is really something much further than it looks on the map. I wasn't sure I'd find it, but the sign back there read that this is approximately the spot where Polish forces created a massive minefield in the year of 1939. Most people believe that the Hel Peninsula was effectively blown into an island proper, when that wasn't exactly the case. It was a mess, nothing could really cross, so it gave the Polish forces who were holding out on the other side a little bit more time and a little bit more security. It's tempting to just cheat, go the easy way, but rules are rules. and we have to stick to the course. Those windmills off in the distance seemed foggy all day. This is the very first time that they've kind of come into focus. I don't think this is a place people visit too often because there's nowhere to really park your car. There's no accommodation around here. It's just a bike path. And this trail, if you can call it a trail, doesn't seem suitable to bikes. So I think this is kind of an exclusive little peek behind the scenes. But the disconcerting thing is that that water's still, and you hear some pretty miraculous waves. You know, I know that they're over there, but in moments you could forget, so it just comes across as being very creepy, like as if there's a ghost in the forest or something. Other thing that's creepy is the fact that this trail seemed to dead end. The thing about being in a peninsula is that you can't really get lost. You can only be inconvenienced. I know that I said you can't get lost on a peninsula, but I gotta say, I feel kind of lost. I think I officially messed up. It's like one of those things where, oh my God, I think a fox may have had quite a meal here. It's like one of those things where you know you should have gone back a long time ago, but you committed, so you just keep going, and it just gets worse. That's not all bad. Oh wow. And suddenly it opens up to a humongous field where boars clearly, very clearly live. Jesus, I don't need to be thinking about that. We are officially off the trail and walking in the marsh. Feels better here. I hope it leads somewhere. Wow, and we're really getting close to the end. At least that's how it looks. Check that out. All right, I can make some recommendations for places to visit and not to visit. This is gonna fall in the don't bother category, because as you can see, I'm a long way off course, effectively wandering through the grass, and I've got to get somehow over there to the other side. This probably means going all the way back around, but we're going to try and see what's over here first. Eesh. Seems to go that way. All right. I mean, this is a unique experience. Getting to Hope is a little bit harder, but I've got good news. Out to the open field again. Looks like we have the final step in whatever this place was. Hopefully I won't be misled. And beyond this grass, I see total civilization. Right up ahead, we have a pretty cool perspective on that godforsaken marshland that I got lost in. Looks pretty harmless from here. You can see where the rocks start. That's kind of the last beach. Went up and around. Perhaps my celebrating was premature. I just realized that I've got almost 9 kilometers from here to walk still. But we're gonna do it. We're going to the end today. That's for goddamn sure. I'm done with this adventure. You'll notice that there's Polish above and some mysterious language below. What could that be? That's Kashubian, which is a regional language. It's officially a minority language here in Poland. And I would add that Kashubians are totally Polish. In fact, they say that you don't have Kashubians without Poland, and that you wouldn't have Poland without Kashubians. Pretty hard to think of a place that's more dedicated to recreation than this peninsula. It is Poland's playground, indeed. And now look at this. This is a town. It's a tourist town, so it's very quiet in the wintertime, but people do live here. What do you see? Beachfront filled with bikes for rental, people out on kayaks, their fishing boats, all the rest of it. I got shy because there were people. You'd think I'd get used to that after a couple of years doing this. You might recall me saying that this is one of the most popular places for young people. And that's because they come here and camping campers, it's quite hip, surprisingly. Quite a few Polish celebrities also partake in that summertime tradition. I've never done it. The campers look a little bit disheveled for my liking. But we're coming upon these huge RV parks, and they start from here and they go on for pretty much the rest of the peninsula. The issue being that they are private property and they have fences in front of the beach. Now, these trailer parks are pretty cool. They've got like skate ramps and some kind of skater surfer paradise as far as I can tell. But the inner bay is beautiful in its own right. Must have stopped construction somewhere in the 1990s. It's quite abandoned. It's just occurred to me, if you look over my shoulder there, that Hel is so far away that it's really no longer visible. So we get ever closer to Władysławowo port. The camping grounds have started to subside. Nature has absolutely changed. And you can see the dunes right there to the seaside. Obviously hear it as well. And I'm tired, but rules are rules. So even though we're getting close to the end, I have to try and walk close to the water. So I'll enter the forest here and see what it has to offer. Not quite what I expected. Well, and it doesn't seem that we'd be able to walk there anyways. But we discovered a private rose garden. I'm quite delighted because right over there, you can see the top of Władysławowo City Hall, which means that we are practically home right now. Check it out. The sun is just shining beautifully on that town across the water. Seems to be a helicopter flying over it. Status update as we're reaching the end of the road. We started here, traveled all the way down, around to Cypel, back on the bay side to Jastarnia. This is where we continued today. Kuźnica, stopped for a quick breather. Hel, where we saw the campers. Now I'm somewhere about here. And we're about to reach the end. Look at that. Quite a monument. The road between Władysławowo and Hel. Kind of looks like the end of the road, really. And that's the final straightaway. The bay is too marshy. No way to walk over there anymore. So I think this counts. There's one pesky little detail that I have to make right. You see, when we started this whole journey, the very entrance to the seaside beach was blocked. I couldn't get there. So I started about 300 meters into the peninsula. Technically speaking, I have to go back there and walk that section. So even though I'm feeling like an old man in this moment, my knees hurt, my feet hurt, I'm disheveled, got sunscreen all over the place. We got to make things right. I went this far. I'm not going to sacrifice just a couple of meters so that people can call me out and say that I technically didn't walk the entire peninsula of Hel. So, behold, in front of us we have the seaside. Once again, look at that. So we walked that entire section there. I'll never forget it. The beach of a mirror maze. But what we failed to do was walk this little bit in front of me. So we're going to rectify the technicalities. Then I'm going to head back to the bayside, finish it off properly. It looked entirely different last time we were here. Say what you want about me, but you can't accuse me of not being a man of conviction, because here we are. Taking my final steps here. Right in front of me is the sign to Władysławowo, and just beyond that Circle K marks the end of the Hel Peninsula. A couple of more steps, and we will put this whole experience behind us. And we have officially crossed into the town of Władysławowo. Right in front of me is the end point of our journey, the end of the peninsula. So you might be wondering at this point, what is my grand conclusion, my takeaway? Well, I've got a new respect for distance. I think that much is clear. But even more than that, I just want to advise you, if you ever come to Hel, don't do what I did. Otherwise, it will feel like a living hell.